Awesome.
Hola, everybody. Hello. I'm here with Justin Leslien from USA, Georgia, Atlanta. Good morning.
Morning, Micah, or good afternoon to you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. There is an ocean between, so a couple of hours of flying, but happy we have this online connection and we can share thoughts and talks around the world.
For sure, my friend. I appreciate the platform and having me on internationally. I love to share my testimony and story internationally. And hopefully your audience can learn from my human experience today. Um, I'm at the young age of 27. I've been through a lot in the last 4, 5 years or so with all this COVID. I call it the COVID charade, and we can get into why I ultimately believe what I believe. So yeah, we'll take it away with whatever questions or whichever way you want to take this. I'm more than happy to uh, share.
Yes, and for the people who are following this video first time, my name is Mika Vauhkala, and here in Finland I have sued the government and Pfizer, not Pfizer, but Pfizer, which is a big, a billion-euro revenue catering and cafe company over the Covidpass, and it's now at the Supreme Court, the case, and it may end up to the European Human Rights Court in France, Strasbourg. And on my team, I have many people, but maybe the most known one is the Dr. Asim Malhotra from UK, and he's currently the chief medical advisor to Make America Healthy Again program and the RFK Jr. And Justin is here. I found you, Justin, online. I think maybe early this year. You came across on some video, and I watched your documentary films, and it was a very interesting story. As you said, you are 27, and a couple of years ago, maybe you were 20, 22, 23, and you were working at for Pfizer and as an undercover agent for James O'Keefe and what is his media? O'Keefe.
Project Veritas, and then now O'Keefe Media Group is where he's at. So yeah, you're spot on. I believe I was 23 when I started working for Pfizer. Might have been 22 turning 23. That's not exactly, fully relevant. It was my first job out of college. And to share on how I ultimately ended up working at Pfizer is I was in a master's program of biomedical sciences at Rutgers, because I graduated college with a pharmaceutical science degree from the University of Rhode Island in the States. And the whole reason I wanted to get into pharmaceuticals was out of good faith in the sense of I wanted to help create drugs for rare diseases, and like be a guy who helps create drugs for a smaller population and, be able to help them, but ultimately I've really woken up to the fact that pharmaceuticals are literally just a band-aid. They don't get to the root cause about anything. And ultimately, I'd say 99% of pharmaceuticals are pretty much something that you should not be putting in your body. Some people might disagree with me on that, but I pretty much stand firm that emergency medicine is pretty much the only things that we really need to embrace from that model. If you get into a car accident, I'm not going to say don't get stitched up and get lidocaine in you, something like that, but I'm very much against the allopathic medicine model as a whole.
Wow. Uh, Let me ask something for the Europeans here watching here in Finland. Many are following, and Sweden, Denmark, UK, wherever the story goes out. So most of you Americans are initially from Europe. So can you just tell a little bit what you know about your family background? Your grandmama, grandpapa, did they came with the boat from England, or how they ended up in US?
So my grandpa is Irish. I'm Irish, French, Canadian, German, English. I'm a big mutt. I'm also Spanish. My real grandfather, who I've never met, he left my father when he was 5 years old, him and his brother. So I've never gotten to meet my 100% Spanish grandpa. So I have a lot of Spanish in me, about 25%. Um, and yeah, that's about it. I think that's five nationalities. So, and my step grandpa, they came over from Poland. My last name should have been Muniz originally from my real grandfather, and then my adopted grandfather's last name is Leslie, but his real last name, the family name that they used until they came over from Poland was Zaleski, and it
Mm.
became Leslie. They changed it because of, the immigration and everything, and I guess they didn't want to get caught. I don't know the full backstory on that, but definitely a big, I would call it a mutt when it comes to nationality, with the family. So that's really my background. There's just lots of diversity that comes from my family lineage.
Yeah, yeah. It's always interesting. Like I hear and read those stories, people going in the early like 100 years ago with the boat. They started from Edinburgh or Finland or wherever, and then they ended up in the US, and some even way before that. So it's always interesting. And just a little funny side story to Atlanta and US. When I was your age, 27. I had I was first time in the US visiting. I was 3 months there, and I was in after a girl in the US. Behind every story there's a woman, and I actually drove with car. I bought this Ford Escort, maybe 1992 model, like 1,500 US dollars or something, and I drove it to the West Palm Beach in Florida,
Oh, okay.
via Atlanta, and that was 2008 early on my first visit there. So never forget. So I've been driving close by where
That's
I'm
funny.
staying right now.
That's funny stuff. Cool.
Yeah, let's
Well,
go to the COVID more here and like with this
yeah,
case.
do you
Yes.
have screen sharing abilities? I can like go over some of the stuff in the documentary if you want. Just
I
share it
think I think we
quickly and
are
then
able
we
to do
can.
it. I think I have to check it out.
Says for me, sharing is not turned on. I mean, ultimately, we can just go over what's in the documentary. For those who have not heard of me and came across my story, my documentary film is justintegrity.net. Um,
Yeah,
I just
let
requested
me
to share.
see if I'm now you should be able to share.
Awesome. All right, I can just get into some things
Yes.
with you. It'll probably be really exciting for the audience to see. I'm gonna go over chapter 16 first. As that is really where a lot of the meat and potatoes of my content is. So give me a second. All right.
You can maybe play the clip where which got like a 50 million views on X as well.
I can play that one too. I'm gonna play this one first.
Yes, yes, let's go.
All right. About nine
This
minutes.
video here is from October 6th, 2021. I had a meeting with my manager, Conwell Gill. I'm a principal scientist working on the vaccine formulation at Pfizer. In this meeting, I asked her if it was okay to give people another experimental injection regarding the booster shots, or if it was a drive for money. So are we, we are still like, do we know that, like, I mean, just thinking, like, ethically, like, is it okay to, like, give people another experimental injection? Like, are we sure it's going to be safe and effective? Are we just rolling these out because we want to roll them out for money? Like, yeah. This is a real time data that we are generating. We don't even know. When we started vaccinating people, we had no idea how it's going to look like. Yeah. mRNA vaccines have been there for 50 years, no, but nothing made to clinical. Why? Because mRNA vaccines have been known to have side effects. Right. But has been working on it for 10 years. This is not the new thing, right? But why it did not reach trial was because of all these side effects. we, Pfizer and Moderna, used the emergency and the pandemic to kind of get through it now. Okay. But we didn't. But even CDC noted we don't have data. So never get FDA approved until we had this emergency, right? Like we had to try something new. So, but why didn't we try like a vaccine formulation that has been effective in the past, like with egg yolk or something that they use with flu, right? Yes, so we here did not do it because we already have collaboration with BioNTech on flu before actually COVID happened. So mRNA. So what the story behind we starting on this, because BioNTech guy Sahil, the BioNTech CEO, he called Catherine Jensen. Sahil. Yeah, he called Catherine Jensen and he's like, hey, I have this technology, but I don't have resources to make it big. So Catherine was like, well, we had a collaboration in place before for flu. So we wanted to give it a shot. It is a new mRNA thing. Nobody knew anything about it. We never had this. Everything is just fresh from last year. Like learning on the fly. So it was on the fly. Pandemic, just roll it out. There was no time to think. It was a time to act. Who Conwell was mentioning in this clip is Catherine Jensen, the former head of vaccine research and development at Pfizer.
I'm Catherine Jansen. I develop vaccines which help millions of people around the world to be protected from nasty and deadly infections. Currently, I'm developing a vaccine candidate to help prevent COVID-19.
In an interview in 2020, Catherine confirmed what Conwell was saying, where she fully admitted that Pfizer was flying the plane as they were building it. This is a huge admission as to the nature of the so-called science that was happening behind the scenes.
The most chilling thing for me was when we walked our dog and we go by the hospital complexes and you see one refrigerator truck after the other appearing in the parking lots in front of the hospitals.
The refrigerator truck morgues.
Morgues, right. It was just chilling, absolutely chilling. That was absolutely fueling the desire to come up with the vaccine, no matter what it takes.
This was kind of personal.
It became very personal. I saw this as an enemy.
The virus.
The virus. I took this very personally. I wanted to fight it, beat it, fight it down. It was, nothing else mattered.
I also have the transcript of audio that I obtained on October 28th, 2021, from the former head of pediatric formulations, Bakul Bhattacharya, reiterating what Catherine and Conwell were saying, claiming once again that they were building the plane as they were starting to fly it. Conwell then goes on to say that the vaccine was not so effective and says that the mRNA and LNPs are very sneaky. Only Johnson & Johnson side effect came out quickly, that there was a clot that was happening with Johnson & Johnson's. Right. Other than that, mRNA and LNP are very sneaky, I think. We are not still seeing a lot of huge complications. She goes on to highlight how the clinical trials completely skipped normal clinical trials and went straight up, all at once, to phase 3. There are 3 types of trials, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We just went straight up. Right? Yeah. We just did this, but this is why it takes 10 years for a vaccine to come out. Yeah. It takes years of, observation, blah, 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 1, then 2 and 3. Here we are doing everything at the same time. So everybody is as puzzled. Yeah. Nobody has 100, even CEO, Pfizer CEO, and even Ugo Sahin won't have answers. Because they are looking at it, closely watching it. At this point, that's all we can do. And I feel it's also becoming a money game.
Oh my God.
This is where it started. So problem is distribution of vaccines to those populations, to those countries. By the time it reaches there, this vaccine is now not useful. I'll ask you this one. Why are we worried about booster shots over here if we're going to, shouldn't we be giving them? Of course, but there's so much of politics, right? This is Ramin Davari, the pharmaceutical formulation scientist from Pfizer, one of the head honchos of the COVID-19 formulation team. This clip was from October 21st, 2021. Just listen to what he has to say about the safety issues of the vaccine.
My mother called me 2 days ago and said that her therapist's friend told her that her friend took a booster shot and died like the same day, I think, in her bathroom. I don't know if it was Pfizer, but like,
Yeah, any booster shot so far has been Pfizer.
so I mean, well, it must have been Pfizer. And I'm just like concerned that, like, I mean, she was relatively old. She was 77 apparently. But I mean, it's kind of scary to me.
But that's the thing. Just people die every day.
I think it's something that we should look into and make sure that the boosters are, yeah,
It's just not our job to look into that.
Yeah.
But there are people within Pfizer, all the political people.
Okay.
And the safety people.
Right.
There are people who are not only looking at that, actually, there are reports that come to Pfizer zillions of them every day.
Zillions.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think Pfizer gets mad when they don't mandate it?
From a business perspective,
Yeah.
it's just like saying, you think the chips companies, they're going to get mad if somebody says chips is not good for you? Of course.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I mean,
they don't care if people just eat chips all day and die because their job is
to sell chips.
engineering it the way that I take. No, it's not even selling it. It's for me to take it, basically, right? Because otherwise I won't buy it.
Right.
Yeah. So you forget about those parts of business, basically. So
yeah,
they're engineering it specifically for me to take the next one.
Right.
So increasing my consumption and increasing my consumption, guess what? It's going to affect my heart and I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about that.
Yeah, I know. That's why I don't eat chips. They're giving out free chips over there, and I don't eat them because I'm like, I don't want that. Give me a free salad.
Saying no to it is very easy.
All of these admissions were from higher ups and people directly involved with the production of the vaccine. While the public was being told that the vaccine was safe and effective, behind the scenes, Pfizer was gaming the FDA and convincing everybody to board a plane that they were building in mid-flight.
All right. We can chat about that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So that's about a 9-minute clip from my documentary here. Let me try and stop sharing. There we go. So basically the context of those conversations were that I was working at Pfizer for about 6 months and I started working there in March of 2021. So the vaccines were already getting rolled out in real time, and I essentially took the job opportunity to go see what was happening for myself. I was miserable in the master's program at Rutgers that I was talking about, and I kind of transitioned to being more of a very much part-time online student versus doing the master's program from home full time. And I took a job opportunity at Pfizer. I was interviewing with about four other companies as well, but Pfizer was the only one that offered me a job. And so it was kind of like God winking at me in a way to just go see it for myself. So I did, very much a self-sacrifice type situation because I was absolutely miserable, mortified to go work for who I saw as the enemy. But you
So
know,
did you have like already this thought that you want to just get in to really see how it works, and you kind of had this thought of being like an undercover agent for maybe exposing things, or was it like just curiosity or something? All those
I knew in the back of my head that I would have an opportunity to be a whistleblower. So it's not like that thought didn't exist. I definitely wanted to see what it was like for myself and like observe in real time like what was going on, I knew that I wasn't taking the COVID vaccine. Like I went in with zero intention of taking it. And until they pinned me against a wall, and or cornered me into taking it, I would have just left. I wasn't giving up my bodily autonomy. So that shows you that I had no intention of actually taking the vaccine. And yeah, there was always that thought in the back of my head that I was going to be a whistleblower about the whole thing. And I even reached out to Project Veritas, the company ran by James O'Keefe at the time, to be a whistleblower before I actually even took the actual job opportunity. They told me, we can't tell you what to do, Justin. So I said, okay, that makes a lot of sense. They can't, and we can't come to an agreement before I even make up my mind. So I essentially just went with it and had the thought in the back of my mind that I could be a whistleblower, and that I wanted to do something to help humanity, and I just what I was seeing on the inside correlating with what was going on in the media just did not make much sense. Like it's not like we weren't working with a virus. We were just doing analytical assays on the COVID vaccines to make sure that these like lipid nanoparticles were, encapsulating themselves and that the stability was, up to par with what it should be. And like I had all this access to these documents, and there was, an enzyme called luciferase, which is very telling for what is going on with these vaccines. The enzyme literally has the name Lucifer in it. Lucifer stands for light. Why couldn't they have called it lightase? I'm not sure, but ultimately it's a fluorescent enzyme that was used it's used for the assays that I would do with the lipid nanoparticles, where like there's studies with rats with this enzyme where it lights up when you put the rats under a black light. So I myself even would go, do my research, and I found this, and I just found it interesting that it was getting injected into people, and some people were actually lighting up from taking a black light. That is also in my documentary, but ultimately getting to these conversations that we just played. The first one was my manager, Conwell Gill. And I will say that there was no, from my perspective, I don't think Conwell is necessarily like an evil person. She's just naive and programmed to believe what she was believing in real time. She was probably going through the, MK Ultra of like how money can ultimately coerce your decision making as well. So I'm not saying that she's like rooted in evil, from my perspective. Ultimately the things that she says shine a light on the corruption in the pharmaceutical industry. And the first things first of her saying that the mRNA technology that they were using was known to have side effects, and they used this emergency use authorization to essentially get through it now. That was one of the first things that really hits me of this is absurd, right? Like we're dealing with a virus, and I'll get into my entire spiel on virology once I'm done going through all of this with you. But I don't want to derail the conversation of going through what was said. She's talking about the emergency use authorization, which is the excuse to allow this mRNA technology to get approved, to be used on the population. Ultimately, if there was no emergency, there is no way in the world that people would sign up for this mRNA technology, which is formulated essentially to harm you from my perspective. And also Mike Yeadon, who is a ex-vice president of Pfizer, who was not working at Pfizer at the time when all of this started happening. He is quoted on saying the same things that I'm saying, that this was formulated ultimately to harm the world. So and then that has a lot of evidence behind it as well, with all of the blood clots that we've seen coming out of people, the white clots, as well as Guillain-Barré syndrome, people just having turbo cancers up the wazoo. You were injecting yourself with straight up poison. I call it a toxic poison bomb. It is something that sh should not be put into your body. And ultimately, it is a drug delivery system in a way where it's linked to graphene oxide and it's creating all of these microclots in your circulatory system. That is where all these white clots are coming from what I have researched and my perspective on what these shots were doing inside people. And ultimately, the human body is a brilliant machine that can detox and heal from these types of things. So I'm not here to black pill people.
Mm.
I'm just stating the facts as to what happened and actually shine a light and white pill people that you don't need to rely on pharmaceuticals to be healthy. That's really my message here. So Conwall was saying emergency use. It took 50 years for this vaccine technology to get used, and they're using the emergency use to get through it. That is absurd to me. And then she's saying Albert Bourla and Ugur Sahin, both CEOs of the Pfizer and BioNTech companies that were creating this vaccine together. BioNTech has this lipid nanoparticle technology essentially that they wanted to make big, like Conwell was saying, and Ugur Sahin came to Pfizer because they did not have the manufacturing capacity ultimately to get through on a large scale. So they were working on this mRNA flu technology actually back in like 2017 and 2018. Now, come 2019, 2020, when all of this COVID hysteria starts in the news cycle, they start talking about Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson and Johnson as these three big companies that are going to create this formulation. So Pfizer ultimately was practicing on this mRNA flu vaccine that they had, and they were never going to get approval for it because nobody in their right mind was going to take an mRNA flu vaccine, or just a harmful flu vaccine that has never been tested on, people on a large scale. People were ready, just going to be taking their egg yolk vaccines that were, from my perspective, not as formulated to be as harmful. And then, this COVID charade happened, the massive psychological operation, which is COVID-19, rooted in fear-based propaganda happened. And that's how they were ultimately able to coerce the masses on an international level to take an injection that they did not need.
Yeah, it's like a when this Donald Trump made this, even though I supported Donald Trump to be elected and way more than Hillary Clinton. Let me be clear on that. But when he made this announcement that they're gonna release this Operation Warp Speed, I remember seeing that clip on my phone or laptop that time. I think it was 2020 summertime. Something in my gut and mindset. This is now the sidestep. This is a wrong move from Trump, and I just decided and I felt I'm not gonna touch with anything this vaccine. I'm not gonna take any of these things, and something was just wrong out there in my view. And now in this court case against the government and this big catering company to the Supreme Court, I have provided also the data from the Pfizer, this post-market authorization data, which was released early 21, and there is proof of lots of harm, serious harm done to people. And also in my testimony in the court, I was telling a story of a man in Helsinki, who I know personally. 21 April, he got his first Pfizer, and in like 1 or 2 hours, his left eye got blind, and he got 6,000 euro for compensation on that. And last year, when I was talking with him, last time he was still unemployed, like not able to work. He got out of the workforce. And in the court, I told the Finnish government and the Pfizer and the judges that the reason I didn't take these vaccines is because I knew they can cause a lot of harm. And I've been in insurance business myself for over like 13 years now. And I don't know exactly how it goes in the US, but in Finland it goes this way that if you want to have a certain insurance is like a life insurance or if you cannot work anymore or whatever, you have to fill in your health data to apply for the insurance. It's not automatically yours. And if you have had a stroke or cancer or some really serious issue sometime prior, nothing will be approved. You will not get the coverage you're looking for. Or if you want to lift up the level you have now, the coverage, you cannot get it updated. So this was like a one reason, not the only reason why I didn't take the vaccine myself. And as the main reason in the court, I told that I've been a Christian many years, and I believe that the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we are so-called the body of Christ here in the world, all the believers. And because I knew this product can cause you harm, I just wanted to honor my faith and principle out of here, not to harm the body of Christ with this Pfizer or Moderna or something else. So this is a very deep thing, all the COVID going on, and I will ask you something about when you were inside Pfizer working there. So how many of these Pfizer employees and executives or those you came to know, how many of them were taking these shots themselves? What do you think? What is your evaluation?
The percentages when I was working there
Yeah, like
up until
estimation.
August. So August 2021, the entire on-campus staff was about at 90% actually. And I was one of the black sheep because I was a contract employee. I was a contract employee, so my
Yeah.
vaccine status was not shared with my manager. My contract was that my contract organization knew my vaccination status to be on campus. So people thought I was vaccinated. I pretended essentially that I was vaccinated to not cause a stir up with people. They
Mm.
started telling me to get the booster shot right when the booster thing was going around, and I was like, yeah, little do you know, I'm not taking anything. So the whole thing is rooted in fear. Ultimately, the guy Bakul Bhatnagar who talked about, how that we're flying or we're building the plane as we're flying it. He was very big on getting vaccinated. He got boosted whenever he needed a booster. Conwall was vaccinated. I'm not sure if Ramin was vaccinated. It's hard to say. I feel like he was. I feel like a majority of these people were actually vaccinated, especially the higher ups. I feel like the whole entire money game and them getting the incentives to produce the vaccine coerced them also into taking said vaccine. But there was an option for people that were on site ultimately to take this PCR test, which I was leaning into, with a religious exemption and also just, I have a medical excuse as well, where I was diagnosed with a, multi-system neurological disease called tuberous sclerosis complex at the age of 10. And so, from my perspective, I wasn't putting anything experimental in me because I have a mild version of this thing and I don't want to throw whatever, whatever pathways and everything that are going wrong in my body. I don't want to throw those off even further, and I'm ultimately working on healing from that as best as I can. But to answer your whole question, in about August of 2021, they sent out a company-wide mandate saying that we were at 90% capacity and we needed to get to like 99% vaccinated by November 12th of 2021. And so my whole Project Veritas undercover sting operation moments were happening actually in between that time frame for the most part. And it uh led that mandate that they sent a company-wide email ultimately led, I think, to getting them another 5% or so,
Mm.
where I was working with my contract company. From my personal perspective, I was working with the contract company, sending emails. I had a phone call with them. I said, there's no way in the world that I'm taking this vaccine and I make it. And if you guys fire me, you're gonna get a lawsuit or you're just gonna get exposed essentially. And so from my perspective, I was just not taking it. And then while I was working there, I took about 3 or 4 PCR tests that they weren't the nose swab ones. They were these different type where there was like a tube, probably, 3 or 4 inches big, and you'd have to spit in it and then put this liquid in it. And so it was weird. Like they probably have, whatever. I don't need to go down the rabbit hole of DNA and RNA, but ultimately, I feel like we've been pretty much lied to about a lot of what that stuff really is too.
Okay,
They
can I
have
ask
some.
you, how
Go
many
ahead.
of these Pfizer employees you think really believed this is the right thing to do?
I would say that 75%.
So
If
nobody
I
was really questioning anything in any business meetings, lunchtime,
There
coffee.
were people, but they were black sheep like me, where they were ultimately just afraid to speak out. The stigma and the environment that we were working in, from at least where I was working in Massachusetts, in Andover, Massachusetts, that conversation was never had on campus. For me. I never talked to anyone about my true beliefs. I was too afraid to, and that's ultimately what led me to going to Project Veritas and wanting to be a whistleblower because I didn't have anyone else to really talk to and share with. I felt like such a black sheep, but I will say that since coming forward as a whistleblower, I've been reached out to by a handful of people actually that worked at Pfizer, and some of them got vaccinated and regret it. And then there's others that were like me that also just didn't take the dang thing and said we're going to do the PCR test, and they just never ended up taking it. There were probably like 10 people around my area of campus that didn't take the shot, and I just don't know their names. The whole thing with the PCR testing thing was that it was anonymous, and I never really ran into anybody who was taking it around the same time. So I think the reality of it is that I was on a research analytical team, small scale team. I think a majority of the people that weren't taking it were the ones that were working in manufacturing on a large scale process because they knew they've seen it before with other drugs and other vaccines that the way that everything was like on the up and up scale was way too fast and they just did not agree with it. And the thing with my team is that they were essentially excited to create this thing at warp speed. They didn't shy away from taking it from my perspective. There were probably 1 or 2 people maybe on my floor that were against it, but still ultimately actually took it. But I think a majority of the people were probably from the manufacturing teams that ended up shying away and doing what I did. So for the people that think that like everyone from Pfizer wasn't taking the vaccine, um, I will say that a majority of them took the vaccine, at least on paper. I'm not sure if they took a different formulation or if they took something like saline. I can't answer to that because I don't have evidence of it, but I think there are other stories about that where there are either other formulations or salines. I don't have that information to present on this call right now. So, we don't have to get into that necessarily. But the people that I was working with totally were on board with the shots, which leads from the programming and believing in, this, virus that is causing the psychological operation that was COVID-19.
Um, in Finland, what happened here, like the stigma which they put on the non-vaccinated people was, for example, 21, I think it was October. So the bishop of Helsinki, or the capital area of one Lutheran church, he was saying in public in the main newspaper of Finland, Helsingin Sanomat, that the unvaccinated person is responsible for the suffering of his or her neighbor and the death. And then even our president, when he signed into law this Covidpass law, he was saying that the unvaccinated people have isolated themselves, that it was our mistake that we are out of the society. And I was kicked out of from many places and and many other people, and it's so yeah, it's crazy. You were saying about this manufacturing people there. In online, there are, I think, from Denmark or other places, there are surveys or studies that some batches of these vaccines or jabs were really harmful, some were not, and they've been, studying like how many were given and what were really causing the harm. Do you have any thought, any say, any view to say to this, like how it can be that there is a certain percentage that have been causing harm? What do you think? Was it just a mistake in manufacturing, or has it been done with the plan, or whatever is your free thought here?
I would say that the overarching agenda was rooted in harm. So, like Albert Bourla, there's no way that he didn't know that these vaccines weren't causing harm. The higher ups, the vice president level executives had to know that this was causing harm. And some of them might have ultimately been turning a blind eye to what was going on and didn't really understand what was happening in real time and might look back and think of the mistakes that were made. But Borla certainly had to know that this was going down in real time. And I feel that um, Pfizer and the FDA, like Borla worked with the FDA and used some, the programming of people is something that we have to give grace for, is that they believed what they were believing in real time. So um your question is, were the executives in on the whole thing? Like, is that more or less what you're asking?
No, no, no. I'm asking like there are these different patches of
Or the
vaccine.
batches?
Yeah. Like, do you think somebody has really made a plan that, okay, let's make this certain percents really harmful, some are just more easy and so on? Because in Europe, they have been releasing these studies like about these things.
Yes. So I've done research on the batches themselves. Like there's the website called what'sinmybatch.com, or I believe it's what'sinmybatch.com. And I've gone through that and I actually was linking batches from databases that I had access to and connecting those dots. But I can't really speak on that because I was not in the manufacturing process. I don't know exactly what it went into it, how those batches could have been more harmful than others, other than the hierarchy of Pfizer did something to them that would make them more harmful. And to think from a 40 or 50,000 foot lens, if you're going to create a harmful product, wouldn't you ultimately create certain batches that were more harmful than others? Maybe make some of the batches saline or some less harmful formulation and make some of them way more harmful so that certain populations would get harmed and not everybody would get harmed. Because if everyone was getting maimed by these vaccines all at once, people would have woke up way quicker than they did. I mean, people were waking up to the COVID scam very quickly as soon as the vaccine started rolling out, and we're like, "Oh, I'll never take another shot." My people in my family were like that. My grandma she took one Moderna because she was afraid and of the virus, and it knocked her on her butt, and she said never again. So she's still alive today to be able to talk about something like that. She doesn't fully understand the nature of what's going on behind it all like I do, and hasn't dove into my story. I think she knows I'm like a whistleblower in a way, but she doesn't, have the capacity really to comprehend what really happened. Um, but yes, I mean they're the batches themselves, the ones that are listed on what's in my batch.com certainly were more harmful than others from my perspective. That is an open source reporting because Varys doesn't actually do their job. the hospitals in the States, and I'm sure internationally you guys have something similar to VAERS on a vaccine adverse reaction reporting system
Mm.
that also is not on the up and up because the way that the system is created is we are all indoctrinated to believe that vaccines are good. We're based on our history, based on how the polio situation and everything else back from the 1930s on, the vaccine manufacturing industrial complex has used history, or what I like to say is his story. It's a story on, what happened back then. That's all rooted in logical fallacies that, these vaccines were fixing these diseases. It's all not true, and it's essentially hearsay, ultimately to indoctrinate people into believing that injecting health is good for you with poison, essentially. So regardless of the batch, ERBCA or whatever versus XYZ 1, 2, 3, they're all causing harm. It's just I think some were ultimately formulated to be more harmful than others. And I stand by that based off of the what's in my batch information. And also I can also get into one other thing with you if you want from one of the vice presidents that I wasn't able to play on the first video. His name's Nick Warren. He is a vice president of biotherapeutics and pharmaceutical sciences.
Hey,
This video,
let's do so. Let's have a little break here before we go into that, and let's
okay.
continue.
All right.
Back from the break. Here we go again. Let's go, Justin.
Awesome. Ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna share my screen actually to share what we're talking about. All right. So this is the context of this video that we're about to go through is it is a FDA VRBAC meeting, which stands for Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee. And this was a approval for 5 to 11-year-old vaccines um, for kids for the COVID-19 vaccine. And so ultimately, this is a public admission actually that this vaccine was not safe and was going to essentially not go through any clinical trial testing before getting injected into children the ages of 5 to 11 in the United States. And I believe it was also approved on an international level shortly after all of this. So the person that we are looking at is going to be the name of Nick Warren, where he is right here, actually. All right, here we go.
Actually improves shelf life. And I think Dr. Meisner asked the question that actually how does the buffer work and perhaps how it was chosen. So Nick Warren, he will provide some of the details. Nick? Thank you, Dr. Gruber. My name is Nick Warren, and I'm in Biotherapeutics Pharmaceutical Sciences. We explored a number of alternate buffer systems to enhance the stability of the RNA LNP product, as well as to allow for lower concentrations to be made available. Switch from phosphate to tris demonstrated better refrigerated stability, an increase from 31 days out to 10 weeks, as well as it enabled us to dilute the product from 0.5 milligrams per mil to 0.1 milligrams, making it easier to prepare the dose. Tris is a precedented buffer in biotechnology and has been used in at least 3 vaccines. Our decision was based on empirical stability data, manufacturability, and ease of use for pharmacists and healthcare professionals. We prefer not to speculate about the underlying chemistry. We have performed an extensive comparability evaluation comparing the 2 formulations and have found them to be biochemically and pharmaceutically comparable. Please note that the manufacturing process of the RNA active ingredient and the lipid nanoparticle is completely unchanged. The only change is in the formulation, which is the last step of the product manufacture. Again, there is no change to the active ingredient.
That's it.
Wow.
So Do you understand what that was sharing? Basically, the context, he just said it. He said we came to an agreement on bioequivalence and comparability, essentially. And
Mm.
the guy who asked the question before that was just concerned about the vaccine not going into kids, essentially, before it was getting approved. The vaccine that they used, he called it PBS, which stands for phosphate buffer saline. That vaccine was the one that was tested for like 6 months. The one that they approved was just approved based on shelf life stability and for the ease of use for pharmacists to be able to be rolled out on a massive worldwide scale.
Mm.
Because the buffer PBS had to be stored at minus 80 degrees Celsius, and the one that was approved, the Tris buffer, could be stored between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, which is like a walk-in refrigerator type temperature. So it was way easier to inject the world with a product like that versus one that had to be stored at minus 80 degrees Celsius. A lot of pharmacies and hospitals don't have the minus 80 degrees Celsius freezers that Pfizer ultimately was storing that buffer and testing on,
Mm.
and then they approved the completely other formulation. And so that's why I said I don't we prefer not to speculate on underlying chemistry, and we prefer to just, say this on a live stream, versus telling the public like point blank to their face that this has not been put into children, that but it's still approved to put into your children. So it's literally admission that this is going to be a big clinical trial right now on your kids. So even the people that were pro-vaccine, I feel like that this is something that they would have wanted to know. And so the context behind all this is I watched that, and then a week later, after the approval happened, I went and talked to that guy, Nick Warren, and I recorded him, and I got him to tell me that he gamed the FDA essentially by answering like that. When I was saying, like, weren't those people concerned about the fact that our formulation was the PBS buffer and that's where all the clinical data came from? And then we ultimately approved another shot. We approved another formulation. I don't care if it's the last step or not. It's still doing something different, and it certainly can affect shelf life stability. I understand that they did the 6 month testing and everything else, but you didn't put it into people before fully approving it for the world to take. That's where the ethics and the crime against humanity and the attack on children was happening right in front of my eyes. And that happened. Veritas has that information, and then they didn't release it to the world in November of 2021. They sat on it. Keith ended up offering me a job to go work for him. And so that's ultimately how I was able to reobtain the footage that we just watched at the beginning, the Conwall footage and the Ramin footage. I left Pfizer not having any of that in my possession. I literally had to go and reobtain it and be an undercover journalist and investigate, get their biggest story, which was the Jordan Tristan Walker story, the 50 million view story. That story gave me the credibility to reobtain some of my footage again based off of the rapport that I built with my colleagues. And then I went to O'Keefe Media Group and then worked there for 5 months, obtained some footage on the Ramin stuff, and then the Bohemian Grove stuff happened with James, where he admitted to going to a secret society essentially that is, not trustworthy from my perspective and many people's perspectives. So,
Can I,
oh,
before you talk
I,
about more about this James O'Keefe and going to this Bohemian groove, if you will. So now when he went to have this date with this was he a Pfizer mRNA platform like a key person in Pfizer or
so sorry, my water bottle made a
yeah.
noise, but um, the guy's name is Jordan. His middle name was Tristan. His last name is Walker. Jordan Tristan Walker.
Hmm.
He went by Tristan Walker, I think. Ultimately, his job title was mRNA Director of Scientific Planning. and he was a med school dropout essentially at the University of Texas, and he actually got into marketing.
Hmm.
Uh, he worked at Boston Consulting Group before working at Pfizer. So he worked at Boston Consulting in marketing of vaccines and also other products in the pharmaceutical industry right when all this COVID stuff was happening. So he was instrumental in what was happening actually with Boston Consulting Group. And then he went over to Pfizer, probably made a ton of money at Pfizer, and he started to tell me that um, the COVID vaccine essentially was they were preemptively making COVID vaccines because of, like I've been saying, the so-called virus can be mutated preemptively, essentially. So Pfizer said that they were mutating COVID, right? That's what he said. He's like, Pfizer is mutating COVID. And he said, well, that's not what we say to the public. And it's
So let's stop here. So so that I really understand correctly. So this Tristan Walker was saying that Pfizer, the company, is mutating uh, COVID. That it's not only the virus or whatever is mutating itself by itself, but this is the Pfizer, the company, doing the mutating. And this is what he was
yes,
telling you.
yes, yes, that's what he told me directly.
This is a bombshell, and this got like 50 million views on X or the Twitter at that time. And
Yes, it made Tucker Carlson twice. Um, and it blew up for sure. I'm gonna see if I can find it right now. Um, Give me 1 second to find the video. Or we can just keep talking and I'll find it and we can talk about it to play it.
this is really interesting. Like, if you remember the media anywhere in the world you're watching this, it was saying now we have this new variant coming here and there. Now this is whatever weird names they had. Now the Pfizer guy himself, when Justin was going to see him and talk, is giving information that it's the Pfizer doing it, the mutation. So, well, this is criminal if you ask from me and many others. The only thought coming right now for this.
Yeah. So my whole perspective too is that my stance on virology is that it is not exactly it's not a virus that they're mutating. The whole thing is that like I stand on the fact that viruses have not been proven to exist. And I know that some people might think I'm crazy for saying something like this, but the root cause of the science behind virology is ultimately rooted in pseudoscience, where they're essentially creating they're working on cells that are just dying and they're calling it a virus that is happening in the petri dish. And so to me, from my perspective, the fact that this guy was saying that you can mutate a virus, it the fact is that they haven't been proven to exist. And I'm not even just talking about COVID, I'm talking about all viruses. And our conditioning and programming is rooted in thinking that these invisible enemies are causing what we call disease. And it's ultimately all based on logical fallacies, actually, and our understanding of what makes us sick is not there. Um, I take a big stance on the terrain model of believing that, our bodies are able to heal themselves, and ultimately what vaccines are, if there is no virus, is just an attack. And so and people will ask, like, what is contagion then? How do people get sick from each other? And ultimately, that is rooted. Um, I don't have a full explanation, and I don't have to. I just know that the science behind virology is rooted in logical fallacies, and therefore it is um, a pseudoscience from my perspective. And I've even had conversations with AI on admissions of this. So. Um, that's just my perspective. I like to share that with people, as a lot of people are not familiar with this unique perspective of the terrain model, but it really has been a an argument or a discussion that's been going on for the last 100 plus years. It's not exactly mainstream. So let
I
me
understand. I understand. And I know that
here.
the viruses, all they have not been isolated. Like, let's take here's a cup and put the virus here and say now it's here. So
Exactly. It's a lot of um people don't want to understand the science behind these things. And so I actually worked on, the COVID vaccine, and I worked in cell culture experiments when I was in undergraduate school. And so I've seen it kind of in real time where I've been exposed to that work, and I really do understand that the virus itself has never been isolated, and they have to introduce, you know, they essentially take human snot and they put it on a petri dish, and then they say the virus is in there, and then it starts killing cells once it's treated with antibiotics and other things like trypsin and fetal bovine serum, which to me is all sinister. That's cow blood. That's like animal testing with pharmaceuticals. It's absurd, actually, that they do that type of stuff. That's something that's not talked about enough. But let me play this video and we can chat about it after, and then we can transition to the Twitter video, and then we can wrap up.
yes,
Cool.
yes.
Pfizer ultimately is thinking about mutating COVID. Well, that is not fair to the public.
Says your screen sharing is paused. You
Oh,
see it?
shouldn't I see this what you're sharing? But
You
for
see it?
No, I'm not even this building. You got to tell me. Exploring? Like, no, you don't
oh,
have the
it's
virus.
not playing now. It's not for some reason. It's not playing.
It's not playing.
Uh,
And now it says you are screen sharing.
Stadium? Yeah. Well, one of
now
the
it's
things
working. Now,
why
it's
we just
good.
mutate ourselves so we can focus on create untypically developed new vaccines, right? So we have to do that. If we're going to do that, though, there's a risk of, like, as you could imagine, no one wants to be having a pharma company mutating be like very controlled to make sure that this virus that you mutate doesn't create something like, stones everywhere. Something crazy. Like, just the way that the virus started, it wouldn't. To be honest, like, it makes no sense if these viruses pop out of nowhere. Like, yeah, I know.
Meet Jordan Tristan Walker, Director of Research and Development Strategic Operations and mRNA Scientific Planning at Pfizer.
It sounds like gain of function to me. I don't know. It's a little bit different. I think it's different. It's like here's. It's definitely not gain of function, but it sounds like it is. I mean, it's okay. No. Directed evolution is very different. We're not supposed to do gain of function research of the viruses. Like, yeah, probably not. You do like these like selected structural mutations to try to see if you make more potent.
Yeah.
So there is research ongoing about that. I don't know how that's going to work. There might not be any more outbreaks. Just like Jesus Christ.
The gentleman seems to have absolutely no moral compass at all.
All government officials. It's interesting to be honest.
Yeah.
It's bad for everyone else in America.
Why is it bad for everybody else?
It's just the regulators who approve our drugs, that once they stop being regulated, you want to come work for the company, then I mean, it's hard for the company. We're doing our job.
If this is the quality of individuals within Pfizer that are making these huge decisions that risk global public health, it's profoundly corrupt.
What is Pfizer doing, I guess, to optimize, the vaccines now? We actually had a meeting about that today, so there's a lot.
Really?
Doing, I don't know what to say this.
Our undercover journalist asked Walker how Pfizer is handling the fact that their COVID vaccines are ineffective against virus variants. What he said is disturbing. Listen to this.
We're exploring, the virus keeps mutating?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're exploring is, why don't we just mutate ourselves so we can focus on create untypically developed new vaccines, right? So we have to do that. If we're going to do that, though, there's a risk of, as you could imagine, no one wants to be being a pharma company mutating viruses.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we want to do this? So that's one of the things we're considering.
Okay.
In the future, maybe create new versions of the vaccines and things like that.
Okay, so Pfizer ultimately is thinking about mutating COVID?
That is not news for the public. No. That's why that came up in a meeting, and we were like, what do we know? It was like, we're going to consider that for more discussions. That exactly, actually. Like, we're like, wait a minute. Like, people won't like that.
That's right. It appears that Pfizer is internally discussing the possibility of mutating the COVID virus themselves in order to tailor a vaccine to sell to the public. Listen to Walker describe in detail just how they would conduct such a scientific experiment, first in living animals.
So the way that we're thinking about it, don't tell anyone this. You gotta publish your time. You gotta publish your time. So the way it would work is like we put the virus in with monkeys.
Okay.
And then we successively like cause them to keep infecting each other. I would collect serial samples from them, and then the ones that are more infectious, like the virus, we'll put them in another monkey and just constantly like, actively mutate it. That's one way. We can even do like directed like simulation, which like we should not prefer. And then you just sample what the different proteins on the surface of the virus look like over time. So then you can see the mutation, and you cannot force it to mutate in a certain way you want. But you have to be like very controlled to make sure that this virus that you mutate doesn't create something that it goes everywhere.
Something crazy.
Like just the way that the virus started, it wouldn't have. To be honest, like it makes no sense if these viruses popped out of nowhere. Like
yeah, I know. COVID virus experimentation on live monkeys? This is unethical, to say the least, and Walker describes those experiments as if they are ongoing and not simply a hypothetical discussion.
So, I mean, when is Pfizer going to implement the mutation of all these viruses?
I don't know. When all the experiments work out, because this is just like something with dying, right?
It sounds like gain of function to me.
I don't know. It's a little bit different. I think it's different. It's like it's simply not gain of function. It sounds
It is. I mean, it's okay.
no. No, directed evolution is very different. Yeah.
Direct evolution?
Directed evolution.
Directed evolution. Okay. Well, so, I mean, is that what it is?
Maybe where you're not supposed to do gain of function research with the viruses, like they recommend not. But you do like these like selected directional mutations to try to see if you make more potent.
Yeah.
So there is research ongoing about that. I don't know how that's gonna work. There might not be any more outbreaks to think Jesus Christ.
So tell me more, like what's developing with the whole, virus mutation process?
Well, they're still kind of conducting the experiments on it, but it seems like from what I've heard, they're kind of optimizing it, but in going slow, they were very cautious. Like,
right.
Obviously don't want to accelerate too much.
Yeah.
But I think they're also just trying to do it as an exploratory thing, because you obviously don't want to advertise that you're trying to figure out future mutation.
Okay, so did the whole virus mutation thing come from your executive, Sarah?
No. That came from we have chief scientific officers in the other divisions.
In a subsequent meeting, our undercover journalist asked if this type of gain of function research is already being studied at Pfizer. But no, as long as it's called directed evolution, Pfizer's in the clear.
What's the goal for Pfizer of doing that?
So part of what they want to do is to try to figure out, to some extent, there's all these new strains of variants that just pop up. Why don't we try to catch them before they pop up in nature, and we can develop a vaccine prophylactic for new variants.
Yeah.
So that's why they're thinking if you do it control in your lab, then you say, this is an epitope. And so then if it comes out later on, in the public, we already have a vaccine kind of working.
Oh my God. That's perfect. Isn't that the best business model though? Just control nature before nature even happens itself, right?
Yeah. If it works.
What do you mean if it works?
Because some of the times there are just mutations that pop up, right? We're not prepared for it, like the Delta or Omicron,
right,
and things like that. So who knows? I mean, either way, it's going to be a cash cow. It's about to be a cash cow for us for a while going forward. Well,
yeah.
I obviously like it.
Well, I think the whole, research of the viruses and mutating it, would be the ultimate, cash cow.
Yeah, it'd be perfect.
Now, you would think that creating viruses to sell the vaccine would be illegal. But no, the pharmaceutical industry, as Walker puts it, is, quote, A revolving door for all government officials, unquote.
For all government officials? Wow. Yeah, for any industry though. So like in the pharma industry, all the government officials who like, review our drugs, let's say come work for pharma companies. Like the military, like all the like army and defense, like government officials eventually work for the defense documents.
How do you feel about that revolving door? Like,
it's the industry, to be honest.
yeah.
It's bad for everyone else in America.
Why is it bad for everybody else?
It's just regulators of approve our drugs know that once they stop being regulated, they want to come work for the company. They're not going to be as hard for the company. Getting their job.
Right. We talked to Dr. Robert Malone, physician, scientist, and author, to get his take on the comments made by Jordan Walker.
You're gaining function. You're creating a new function in virus 1 by adding elements from virus 2, infecting one monkey and then another monkey. That's called serial passage. That appears to have been one of the technologies deployed in the Wuhan Institute of Virology with the humanized mouse strains that I believe were obtained from EcoHealth Alliance. That's an example of directed evolution. The gentleman seems to have absolutely no moral compass at all about what he's doing. The hubris and arrogance and immaturity, if this is the quality of individuals within Pfizer that are making these huge decisions that risk global public health with such a casual disregard for the human toll, it's profoundly corrupt in terms of would it be feasible for Pfizer to circumvent international or national law. I think that is undeniable. And the gentleman in your investigative work has clearly indicated that Pfizer believes that it has successfully captured the regulatory apparatus of the United States government and presumably worldwide. Pfizer has completed regulatory capture, is quite proud of it.
With governments turning a blind eye and Pfizer hiding information from the public, this is an ongoing story. Be brave, do something, spread these videos, and stay tuned.
Pfizer ultimately is thinking of.
So that is it. That is the Jordan Walker story.
So when I put this our talk online, can I write like a headline or a side headline that Pfizer admitting mutating COVID?
I mean, this is your show. You can ultimately do whatever you want.
But
I'm a
I
big
mean that is it correct if I put it that way?
Well, ultimately, I can share on why I don't believe they're actually mutating COVID and that it's ultimately all part of like the way that mutations and things are occurring. It's not fully understood on a public worldwide lens. So I actually
Okay,
go
okay, okay.
I go over in this video with James if you would like for me to share this, and
Yes,
then
yes,
we
yes.
can begin to wrap up on I guess the Bohemian Grove stuff as well. This conversation is a good summary of my story. So this is James O'Keefe, who was my boss at Project Veritas and the guy who I reached out to be a whistleblower. He didn't share my story, and then he went to Bohemian Grove, which is a high-end secret society in the United States that is connected to the government and the military apparatus, CIA, FBI, and high-up corporations. And I believe it's also in an international level as well. So here we go.
For grapes stuff, massive psychological operation on the world stage is the Jordan Tristan Walker story because you can't mutate a virus that doesn't exist.
It doesn't
COVID-19.
roll now on the screen.
So this says, how do scientists show viruses exist? We start with human snot, applying it to monkey kidney cells. Mix all of this with toxic antibiotics, trypsin, which is a protein destroying enzyme, and then blood from a baby cow's heart, which is called fetal bovine serum. And then you starve and poison the monkey kidney cells, and then blame a so-called virus for killing the cells. There is no independent variable that happens within this scientific experiment because if there was, the cells would die anyways without the human snot. And so therefore, there is no virus causing the cells to die. It's ultimately just a cytopathic effect of these kidney cells. And so this is ultimately where the psychological operation of virology itself is rooted in, is this picture specifically. It's that simple that this is how they have proved scientifically that viruses exist. It's not actually
Are you
scientifically.
sharing the screen right now?
Oh, do you not see what I'm
I
sharing?
see only the James O'Keefe and your X wall. Yeah, now we see it. Now I see this. Now, yes. How do scientists show viruses exist? Okay.
So we got the human snot, monkey kidney cells, toxic antibiotics, trypsin, and fetal bovine serum. They mix all of these things together. And so human snot is supposedly where the virus is because there's apparently all these viruses inside of us. And they apply it to these monkey kidney cells and mix them all together. And so they don't do an independent variable within this scientific experiment until, I mean, it's being done now actually by Jamie Andrews, who on Substack you can find him of virology control studies where he is doing these scientific experiments, and work similar has been done in the past with Stefan Lanka, who is a virologist actually out of Germany who was sued for saying that the measles virus did not exist. And then it stood up in court that the virus actually was never isolated and he didn't have to pay whatever fine he or whatever the person that was suing him for. He lost originally and then he appealed it and then he won because he stood on the scientific method. Virology is rooted in pseudoscience because it does not follow the scientific method whatsoever. It's a pseudoscience, literally.
Hmm.
And so that is where I have an issue with the Jordan Walker story because to me, you cannot mutate a virus that does not exist. That's why I am saying that. And it's rooted on what this picture is ultimately showing. And so let me just finish this video and then I
Yes.
can on everything else.
Any virus does not exist. No virus has ever been scientifically isolated in a cell culture experiment ever. Point blank, COVID-19, massive psychological.
So I included this picture because it's Operation Warp Speed, and then it ultimately reconstructed can be typed out to say, "We prepared a poison," and then the letter T for Trump. I just find that interesting, to tell you the truth. Like I said, there's so many layers to everything, and like you were saying with Trump and Operation Warp Speed being the propeller of Operation Warp Speed, it does not surprise me that you're able to type this out ultimately. So let's keep going.
Whoa. And you and all your right-wing buddies are doing an absolute best job to prevent the masses from waking up against this specific issue. Virology, James. Do you want to get to know why viruses?
No, I can't. I'm giving you a platform to promote your thing. I built a company from a ground up and I have to make editorial decisions and this entitlement and this sour grapes, nasty, just this, how I have so much to say, Justin, but I don't appreciate the fact that you lied to me. And I don't need to have employees who.
How am I supposed to trust you going to Bohemian Grove?
I went to this Bohemian club that's upset people.
Bohemian Grove as a guest. What were you doing there?
Well, I mean, we could talk about that, but we can talk about a lot of the places that I've been.
And there you have it. Deflection tactics by James O'Keefe around the truth about virology, COVID-19 psychological operations, and silence about going to Bohemian Grove as a guest in 2023. Full project whistleblower testimony by Justin Leslien found at justintegrity.net.
So I will stop sharing my screen now. So I don't want to derail anybody's thought process on what viruses are. I just ultimately feel like that this is one of the more important conversations we should be having because if there is no virus, then they cannot do what they did with COVID again if enough people ultimately wake up to the fact that there is no invisible enemy and that you are capable of having your own health and you don't have to inject health with a vaccine. the root of being anti-vax is actually acknowledging that there is no virus. And so to me, yes, the Jordan Tristan Walker story, it does expose big pharmaceutical corruption from a surface level perspective, but it also does provide for me like layers of institutional propaganda that props up the virus being able to mutate, which to me, gain of function really is gain of fiction. There is no virus. So why, like, it's just another layer of programming that people ultimately have to move through from my perspective. So ultimately, I felt that the Jordan Walker story was actually more harmful than helpful for the masses. Like, I was sitting across from him and I knew viruses didn't exist, but I had to be an actor in a way as a journalist because I knew that that story was not attainable because the guy across the table from me believes in viruses. And so I think shining a light on the fact that Pfizer internally was discussing that they're mutating so-called viruses is a big story. Don't get me wrong, but the context that I am providing to you that there really is nothing that they're mutating, regardless, shows even further corruption in, I mean, the media itself, the fact that they're saying that these viruses exist when they don't or have not been proven to exist is a massive, massive crime. Like whether they know they're committing them or not, it's still extreme criminal malfeasance that was pushed on the world, which was this COVID scam. And so, I mean, I'm ultimately grateful for the COVID scam because it woke me up, it shook me awake. I couldn't imagine being in big pharma right now, working in big pharma. It provided me an opportunity to come forward and use my voice and really evolve and learn and unlearn and admit that I've been lied to. And, I encourage people to go down the evidence and try and prove that viruses exist if you think that I'm lying. Because ultimately, I've read all the studies. They are rooted in a pseudoscientific isolation experiment that is not actually isolation.
To sum this part up, let me ask this. This is a very simple question now. In your view, as you say, there is no viruses. So how do you say in layman terms or street mart expression, like what was the COVID then? If it wasn't the virus, what was it in your point of view?
Um, it's probably a couple of things. Fear is actually one of the biggest drivers of disease in the world. And so the fear-based propaganda of telling people that they're going to die, the fear-based propaganda of saying you need to put a mask on, you need to take this test, you're going to have to take this vaccine in order for everything to go back to normal. It's all rooted in fear. And then ultimately, people taking the test for a virus that doesn't exist, it's going to regurgitate. The PCR test is a fraud. So they're regurgitating these nucleotide sequences that was this isolated COVID that, you know, if it comes up 5% of the time and whoever takes the test, people are gonna be like, oh, I have COVID. I need to stay away from grandma. It's rooted in fear. And ultimately people would go to the hospital healthy and then they'd go isolate themselves for 2 weeks and then they end up dying because people were putting remdesivir, these nurses and doctors were giving them remdesivir, which literally the play on words of remdesivir is that it means run, death is near. It destroys your kidneys, causes massive organ failure within a 2 week time frame, and it is harmful. So ultimately, the hospital protocols are one of the huge things that has absolutely murdered people. And I'd say fear-based propaganda. And then just they were talking about taking flu vaccines prior to the COVID vaccine being approved. And then as soon as the COVID vaccine was out, they had their excuse of the mutations of the virus and saying, oh, it's the virus. You need to take more booster shots. And that's how people were actually really dying. The virus, the real bioweapon is the COVID vaccine that was murdering people. There was no virus murdering people. And I think that the isolation and fear of the lockdowns allowed for the 5G, towers to get rolled out, especially in the United States. I'm not sure what they're like overseas, but the 5G rollouts, that's caused a massive increase in flu-like symptoms and cold-like symptoms, and causes the lack of taste to happen. And so that is my perspective, and I stand on the virus not existing or not being proven to exist. Um, so yeah, that's my perspective.
Right. Thank you. This James O'Keefe, when he was your boss and he went to this Bohemian Grove in 2023. I think it's in California, some spot, the place, and I have seen some video clips about that during the years. It comes in the rabbit hole if you go there at some point, and many elites go there. So, do you think he was there as an undercover agent just to check it out? What was it, or he was part of the club? What's your take on this?
He admitted to me to not going to investigate it. He said that people actually support us who go there on a financial level.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So, Micah, my laptop is at 3% battery. Do you want me to unplug this microphone? Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, let me just unplug it real quick so that I can charge. I don't die on you. Okay. Yeah, so I can also share some of the conversation that I had with James if you want, to provide the context of how that all played out as well.
Yes, let's do it.
All right, I'm pulling up the clip. Okay. 1 second. All right, I'll share my screen one more time. See it? Okay, so this is chapters 20 and 21 is where the Bohemian Club essentially is talked about. So this is all context that I'm not going to go through on the sense of time purposes. But yes, the Bohemian Grove is essentially talked about as a secret society. This still shot is of Richard Nixon and of this is also what's the guy's name? The ex-president. Why am
Ronald
I blanking?
Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. Yes, Ronald Reagan's right here. Richard Nixon right here. So they're both ex-presidents, and even Richard Nixon says this. He said that it's like the faggiest thing he's ever been to. So it's, you know, I mean, we don't need to necessarily get into that, but they run this cremation of care ritual, which is conspiratorially talked about as a child sacrifice ritual. Whether it's a mock or actual child sacrifice, it's hard to explain if unless you go. So, um, here, I will start from right here. The very time James was going off grid was the exact week of the encampment at the Grove. Knowing that James was alleged to be headed to California for the secret gathering at the Grove, prior to his trip, I set out to corroborate my story completely as best as I could. On August 1st, I obtained a photo of James O'Keefe's tent slip next to his book, American Muckraker, when I was at his house in Northvale, New Jersey. Carrot Top hooked me up by throwing the tent slip directly in my direction while I was working, and I proceeded to take a picture of it when I went to go to the bathroom. Finally, on August 23rd, James O'Keefe came clean to me and called me saying,
I went to this Bohemian club and it's upset people. So I just wanted to hear from you and kind of take your temperature and see how you're feeling, see how you're doing, like what's going through your mind.
James, how did you even get invited there? And it's the most powerful secret society in the world.
It's I feel like my own team is like eliciting me and challenging me and questioning me. And I think I was just a guest. I didn't see anything wrong there. Some of our people that I've known for many years were there. If I saw something, I wouldn't tell you, but I think there's a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff, and I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything that crossed the line, or anything like that. Some strange things, but nothing like what's portrayed by like Alex Jones or anyone else, as far as I can see. And there's a lot of people that support us that are involved in that. Some people on this team are really challenging me in a fundamental way, and it's really more than I can take right now. So I just need to know, like, are you with me? Are you, and just tell me the truth. Like,
Truthfully, James, I can't say yes to that because of everything that we've been through from Pfizer whistleblower to now.
I can't feel like my own team is like investigating. You have to trust me. It sounds like you're not.
I called James back that day and I wanted to bring up to him more about Pfizer and my story being buried and how this was truly a crime against humanity.
You want to continue our conversation?
Sure thing. James, you advised it, and it wasn't even my decision to go about it this way. It was a manipulated
I thought about the tape again after the February. I thought about revisiting it, but a lot of people said it's a few years old. It's a little old. It's probably not advisable to do it. Our attorney advised us not to look at that footage. And I think it's important that we listen to our attorneys who are trying to help us and keep us out of trouble. There are certain lines that we just can't cross. Certain lines that I can't cross. I wouldn't advise that you cross.
I mean, it's been a lot, and I was like the golden ticket, Willy Wonka of whistleblowers. I mean, literally, codename microscope. I literally showed people like the nanotechnology in this shot, James, like the bioweapon behind it. Why don't we do an interview together on how fucked up the whole thing was?
Because you just said that I'm trying to extort you, and you've crossed. You can't. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I've been through a lot in the sense that, like, I come from being the Pfizer whistleblower, right? I wanted to blow the whistle on this bioweapon, and you shut me up.
Right?
You shut me up. And
who shut you up?
You did.
Who shut you up?
I was silenced by you, sir. Regarding Pfizer, I was a source. Remember, I came to you, wanted to blow the whistle on the whole thing.
What would cause all of the people, all of your former colleagues, to caution you to release that? Why would they caution you to release that?
Probably because they don't want the truth to get out, because of all the powerful information behind it all. It's way too powerful, such as the Vice President Nick Warren saying he gamed the system, gamed the FDA. Tell me that's not public information. Millions of people died, James, from this shot. The moral, ethical thing to do is bypass these things on paper, written laws, that don't actually matter. God's law is what matters, sir. On July 13th, James and I went for a walk in the woods near his house in Northvale, New Jersey.
You went through what you went through, you got that information, and even if it isn't released, like the video of what you did, like you write about it, although that makes you honest. What, the microscope stuff? And just talking to me about things like you I remember when I met you in that restaurant, and I remember like talking to you. I remember thinking, this guy is probably planning it. Yeah.
All right, we can stop there. So that is the Bohemian Grove admission. As you saw, he said that people support us, have went there before. And I actually have information in the sense of Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk also going this year. That was
Oh,
shared to
really?
me after the release of Project Whistleblower, my documentary, which everyone can find at justintegrity.net, justintegrity.net. That is information that was shared with me. I cannot fully corroborate that information, obviously, but I'm willing to share it as it was shared to me from an anonymous source on the inside of O'Keefe Media Group from an old colleague of mine.
So
And so
he was saying, claiming that Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson have been Bohemian Grove this year, or they are going.
a colleague of mine told me that they heard James saying that, yes, about them going to Bohemian Grove. Yes. So that is ultimately where the whole right wing, David Icke calls it the right wing alternative media industrial complex, essentially, or the MAMIC, the mainstream alternative media industrial complex. And, I'm not here to smear David Icke either, but I mean, it's hard to trust anybody really in the media these days. And don't even trust me, like just look at what I'm saying and what I'm risking and take everything that I say with a grain of salt, because ultimately we all have this unlearning to do. And I'm not here to tell you that I'm perfect either. I'm doing I'm allowing the Holy Spirit and Christ to flow through me as best as I can, and I'm praying every day that I'm doing the right thing. It's been, a huge weight on my shoulders, but Christ allows me to just move through these types of situations, which are, um, requires a lot of bravery and moving through fear, essentially, but I'd ultimately be more afraid to not use my voice and not share this information with people, because if I could just help one person, and I know I've helped more than one person, if I could just help one person, then all of this that I've gone through is worth it. I'm not rooted in grifting or asking people for money, any of that. I've did all of this for free. I've actually lost a lot of money on telling this story with the world, but it fills my cup ultimately to be able to impact the lives on, in this situation, being able to share the story internationally on a worldwide scale. So I am very grateful for this platform to share. And if you have any other questions about the Bohemian Grove stuff or Pfizer, please ask, and we can wrap up in a bit.
Yeah, such a short comment. This is just I'm a straight talker, been all my life. So this is just my view. Like, if we say or have this claim that Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson have been there, we don't have really the proof. So we don't really know, because we don't know what your friend is saying. Is it true or
It's
not?
a it's a speculation for sure. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I know for a fact it's a speculation, but the fact that James was there and has admitted to it leads me to believe that it is certainly possible that they could have went from my perspective. I'm not saying that I know for a fact that they went. I'm just sharing information from a source of mine.
I think I've been following Alex Jones many years, and he's one of the favorite guys I follow online on many things. I don't agree with everything he's bringing up, every view he's making, but I think he's trying to be genuine in that sense. Uh, I would be surprised if he was taking part of that.
We will see. The truth will always come out eventually, from my perspective. Alex Jones actually had me on his show after I interviewed with Harrison Smith with the American Journal. I've reposted those interviews on my Rumble channel, actually. So if people are interested in watching those interviews, just go to my Rumble channel. It's at Just Integrity Network or Just Integrity, and then you can find my interviews there, or they're also on the InfoWars website. And to share a little bit about that is I was originally scheduled to only interview with Harrison Smith of the American Journal, but I killed his interview and Alex Jones was watching on the side and then he came over and said, "John, you're awesome. Like I want to interview you." So, um, like you said, I don't fully agree with everything that Alex Jones talks about as he is kind of rooted in the right wing stuff of, supporting Donald Trump and um not being as outspoken about Operation Warp Speed as would like him to be. And um, I pray for uh these folks actually to um continue to grow as people and to work on dissolving their own illusions of the right left wing paradigm of the divide and conquer of what is going on in the world where we are all individually created by God and here to walk our own individual paths and to just continue to divide us versus preaching on bringing us together is a bit divisive from my perspective. Ultimately, I feel that people that are liberals or Democrats, I don't agree with their values more than I don't agree with the Republican right-wing values. But I don't believe in divide and conquer at all. And I think that we all really need to unite and look at what makes us all unique and what is very similar about all of us. And we can come together to help essentially co-create a new system outside of this system, which is rooted in capitalism and just creating profits and profits and profits and evolving like that in an economic system essentially leads to death in a way, from my perspective. Like with this whole AI agenda, even Micah, where the advancement is happening so quickly with technology. It's like, why do we really need to evolve so much more? Like, is it really necessary? Like, AI is destroying creativity, and really, God has provided us with everything that we need on this earth, and it all should be free. Fruit should be free. It's created by the earth. You know, I mean, if you go hunting, that food should be free. Like we need to really get back to our roots and go back to what our older civilizations were doing because the advancement, it's going to lead to basically a chip in your brain or a chip in your hand or a QR code. And you're just going to become a QR code with this whole digital ID agenda is what I've been sharing and what Mike Yeadon from former vice president of Pfizer, he shares this as much as he can, where the digital ID is essentially rooted in the beast system. If you can't take their updated mandated vaccine, you're not going to be able to travel, you're not going to be able to buy food, you're not going to be able to do whatever, because the whole thing is digitalized. And so that is really what this whole agenda has been steering us towards. And that's why we're seeing Trump advance their agenda within this digital ID advancement. And so we have to say no to it. We have to say no to this and stop them from, pushing another virus on us that doesn't exist because ultimately that is where they're going to steer us with this invisible enemy. They're going to steer us right into this digital ID agenda, which is going to they've been saying the year 2030 is the big year where they're, working on whatever agenda that they have. Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum was saying, you will own nothing and be happy. Well, by the year of 2030, that's their agenda. That's the United Nations sustainability agenda. So they're all coercing us into something happening in 2030. And I ultimately think it is rooted in the COVID vaccine agenda, and it's rooted in pushing that agenda. Like COVID legitimately can stand for Certificate of Vaccination ID, COVID. Like there's not a mistake that that acronym lines up like that. And then 19 is the first letter of the alphabet. One is the first letter. Nine is I. Coincidence? I'm not sure. you calling me a conspiracy theorist for saying that? Like, I'm just pointing out facts. Certificate of vaccination ID, and then the first letter of the alphabet is A, or artificial. I, intelligence. It's literally right in your face. I'm presenting it to you. Go do the research yourselves if you think I'm a nut for saying something like that, but I really don't think it's conspiratorial. It's facts.
Yeah, and the COVID pass, it was like a certification of vaccination ID de facto, all the PCR this, but the same thing. And in the court, I shared a story of a meme during COVID times. There was a man going to talk to a priest and was showing the COVID pass and was asking from the priest that is this the mark of the beast from the Revelation chapter 13? And the priest replied, no, it's not, but it works the same way. So this is what they're trying to do. And in Europe, EU, Finland, you can already have the digital ID if you will. I even got the letter from the government 2 years ago that if you want, you can go online and activate your digital ID. I didn't, but we could already do it here. I don't know how it's the US, but uh, yeah, it's going a lot really
I
fast
would
into this direction.
I wouldn't say that COVID vaccine legitimately is the mark of the beast at this point in time. It
Yeah.
is a preemptive, it's a preemptive screening essentially of the mark of the beast, and it's rooted in the mark of the beast system agenda. So take that for a grain of salt and just don't take any more COVID shots. Don't take any other vaccines. Stop relying on injecting health, and remove yourself from this beast system digital ID agenda and travel with a passport. Don't use, your digital ID to go through the airport or whatever else. And the world will be a better place if we just continue to share these thoughts with each other and share the corruption and not be rooted in blackpilling either, because I can get sucked into all the conspiracies too. My story itself can ultimately be looked at as a black pill, like I've said, but it can also be looked at as a white pill in the sense of corruption can be attacked and exposed, and the idolatry of these false idols like James O'Keefe and others in the right-wing alternative media that people look at as like their own saviors. Save yourself. Literally, like, stop paying attention to the news like 24/7. Sure, you can look at it, but we need to get back to the basics and stop worshiping people. Stop worshiping Trump. Stop worshiping your politicians, your
Mm.
musicians, everything else. Worship yourself and worship God Almighty and Jesus, and everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, Jesus Christ is the only name worthy to be praised and worshipped. He died for
Yes.
us and rose
No,
again.
and I take back worshiping yourself, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
like step
yeah.
step into your own authority is more or less what I'm saying, and allow Christ to flow through you on this earth. Don't worship yourself. I'm saying worship God, worship Jesus, and step into your own autonomy again. And like you were saying, we are the body of Christ. So don't let people tell you otherwise, is more or less what I mean by that.
Yeah, and if you are not familiar with Jesus Christ, you can call him into your life anytime. Uh, just do it from your heart and ask him to come, and he will by the Holy Spirit. I think we are getting in the end here, and justintegrity.net is the website for Justin Leslie. You can watch his documentary movies there, and on casecovidpass.com is my website for this court case. And if you will, you can support the coming Case COVID Pass documentary film part one. There you can donate by bank wire or credit debit card, or you can also donate by MobilePay, which is a app working in Finland at least. So you can donate €5, €10, whatever you will. And the first part is coming out likely after the decision from the Supreme Court is coming in the aftermath of that. And we are waiting for the decision to come anytime soon. And yeah, will be fun. And one day I want to do a Hollywood movie of this case COVID pass thing, what's going on, and all the related. But now the documentary is the first one. All right. Thank you, Justin. And
Thank
what is
you.
your final say for the people viewing our talk?
I appreciate your time. I appreciate the platform. Appreciate connecting with people overseas. And if you have the time, please check out my documentary, Project Whistleblower. It's in two separate volumes on justintegrity.net, or you can go and find it on my Rumble channel. I also have it on X where I'm at. My username is at justintegrity_, or you can find me also on Instagram at justin.leslie3. And shoot me a DM, send me a message, reply to any of my posts. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I will get back to you. I normally respond within a couple hours, honestly. So if people have questions, I'm sure they'll be curious about what I have been through and how I, share these perspectives that I have, and how I've evolved from big pharma to becoming a whistleblower. And so once again, thank you so much, Micah, for having me on. Justintegrity.net is my website, and I really appreciate your time and for providing me a platform.
Yes, and you can find me on X Mika Vauhkala and on Facebook Mika Vauhkala. My TikTok and Instagram are both Max Boldberg, BOLD Berg, Max Boldberg. Thank you, people. Have a good summer going on, and talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Awesome.